They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. They're pouring into our country. Nobody's even looking at them. They just come in. The crime is going to be tremendous.
Donald Trump said something Hitler-like yet again, leading to yet another news cycle filled with panicky denunciations of the former president. This time around, Trump declared that undocumented immigrants were, quote, poisoning the blood of the country. Now, I'll get to why it is being referred to as Hitler-like rhetoric in just a moment. But the poisoning the blood of our country language was not in Trump's prepared remarks distributed to media prior to Saturday's event, and it was not clear whether his use of that rhetoric was planned or adopted on the fly. Now, this was during a rally in New Hampshire. In chapter 11 of Mein Kampf, titled Nations and Race, Hitler wrote the following, quote, all great cultures of the past perished only because the originally creative race died out from blood poisoning. Now, Trump made comments similar to that during an interview, and I want to get to what he said to the National Pulse during this interview. He said, quote, nobody has any idea where these people are coming from, and we know they come from prisons. Do we? Do we know they come from prisons? I mean, it just totally makes things up. We know they come from mental institutions and insane asylums. We know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country. It's so bad, and people coming in with disease, people are coming in with every possible thing you could have. Now, he had his defenders come out and of course provide cover for what he had to say here. Before we get to all of that, Cenk, your thoughts.
Okay, so it's a very specific phrase, guys. It's not like, hey, close the border. Well, everybody says that. That's a very common phrase. Immigrants are causing problems, rising crime. Those things are not true, but they're relatively common things that are said. No, poisoning the blood of our nation was only used by Adolf Hitler. And Ivana Trump, in a Vanity Fair profile, said, yes, Donald used to keep Hitler's speeches by his bedside. And that's, I mean, it's amazing because there's every kind of report that he never reads. But apparently the one thing he read was Hitler's speeches. According to his wife, it's in Vanity Fair, you can go check it out yourself, okay? So, and it's not in his prepared remarks. He's gratuitously adding that in. Now, why is this so dangerous? Number one, after Hitler said that, he said the Jews were poisoning the blood of our nation, and then he murdered them all. So a bit of a problem historically. And so now when Trump says these immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation, well, first of all, what's he saying? Our blood is pure, and when their blood, their DNA comes in, they're dirty, and they're poisoning our blood. And so, and he says they're from South America, Latin America, now Asia and Africa. Asians that come to this country are poisoning our blood with their what, inferior blood? And so it has the most dangerous precedent you could imagine. It's a quote that's never been used outside of Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump. You pull that quote out of nowhere to do what? Well, partly to tell people, hey, don't say I didn't warn you. And he says that he's going to do forced, deportations of people once he gets in office. And look, everything he says is mental. Countries in Asia and Africa are taking people from their mental asylums and their prisons, and what they're doing there, what are they doing? They're flying them to Mexico and then walking them to the border and saying, go get them. You would have to be a raging lunatic to believe that. And by the way, after he said that, the crowd, not directly after, but in that same rally, the crowd chanted, we love you, we love you.
Yeah, they do, and look, he is, to me, it is not surprising that he made these disgusting comments, specifically in New Hampshire, where Nikki Haley is closing in on him. She's still not close, but she's starting to see some pretty serious spikes in various states, and New Hampshire happens to be one of them. So he's dipping back into his greatest hits. And what's particularly scary about him making these types of comments in this moment is that public sentiment toward migrants has really gone in a negative direction. And it's because of how Biden and Congress has handled the migrant crisis. You have a migrant crisis that's now hitting, Democratic strongholds, these big blue cities like New York City, like Chicago, and people are frustrated. And what I'm terrified about is this kind of rhetoric, this kind of red meat resonates with people when they are feeling economically unstable and disadvantaged. So I'm terrified that this is going to resonate with a larger population of Americans at this current moment, given the incompetence of our current government in handling this situation appropriately.
So you're absolutely right. We have a recipe for disaster here. So this is exactly how fascists take over. So we have an economy where people feel like they're not making enough to keep up with inflation. And we've told you 100 different stories of how people have too much debt, the wages are too low, et cetera, and they feel like we're on the wrong track and they don't know how to fix it and they feel desperate and hopeless. And then along comes a demagogue. But just a demagogue and a hopeless population is not enough. You need to have a corrupt establishment that says, no, there's nothing wrong. No, everything is great. What do you mean? We should just do exactly what we've been doing so far so that people can say, well, I know I need change in my life. So if the people in power are saying, let's just keep going the exact same direction, I'm definitely going to vote against that. No matter who the other guy is. I'm not even gonna pay attention to who the other guy is, but I'm not gonna vote for more of this, right? And 3/4 of the country thinks that we're on the wrong track. So these are all facts. And then the very last thing you need is a leader on the other side who is incredibly weak and who's obsessed with himself. And I'm not just saying it about Joe Biden. Go back and read the history of the Weimar Republic. Read the history of every fascist takeover.
Read the book.
Corrupt system,
yeah, go ahead.
Hopeless population, an incredibly weak opposition leader who doesn't even bother running against and making a good case against the demagogue or trying to deliver for their people.
One of the books that I recently read is called Why Nations Fail. Read that book. I feel like it is foreshadowing in regard to the United States of America. But with that said, I want to get to the individuals who are providing cover for Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham happens to be one of them. Senator Lindsey Graham, of course, has been sucking up to Donald Trump ever since he got elected in 2016. And so listen to how this conversation went down, and then I'll decode some of it when we get back. Let's watch.
76% of the American people, not Donald Trump, believe the border is broken. They're worried about fentanyl coming over and killing their kids.
But what about his language, Senator? Well, just that language, that poisoning the blood.
I'm worried about an outcome. He is right to want. He had the border secured, the lowest in 40 years in December of 2020. To the Biden administration, you're talking about Donald Trump's language as you sat on the sidelines and allowed the country to be invaded. 172 people on the terrorist watch list have come on your watch. Fentanyl is killing more Americans than any time in history.
Just on the language, though, I want to get your response. You have endorsed former President Trump. Are you comfortable with him using words like that?
We're talking about language. I could care less what language people use as long as we get it right. I believe in legal immigration. I have no animosity toward people trying to come to our country. I have animosity against terrorists and against drug dealers.
Okay, let me just start with the least important point and get to the important point. Least important point, you're a United States Senator. It's I couldn't care less. This drives me nuts. Like, just take a second to think about what you're saying. I could care less means that you care, okay? Anyway, so that's the least important point. Important point to make is, look, I don't know what poll he was referencing there where he said 76% of Americans are upset about the immigration situation. I looked for that figure, I couldn't find that figure. But I did find a Pew Research poll from 4 days ago that is terrifying to me, considering what Americans are in fact frustrated about. And then you hear the rhetoric coming from the right wing and how that might resonate with them. So a new Pew Research poll finds that 32%, only 32% of Americans are confident that Joe Biden can make good decisions on immigration. And even among Democratic voters, 85% of them used to be confident that Biden would make good decisions on immigration, but that number has dropped to 59%, specifically among Democratic voters, from 85% to 59%. So as much as I can't stand Lindsey Graham, and as much as I disagree with him in providing cover for the disgusting rhetoric coming from Donald Trump, unfortunately, some of what he said there is true. And it is a warning to the Democratic Party to wake up to the reality of the situation. But I don't think they will.
Well, that's the problem. We're constantly stuck between clowns to the left of us and jokers to the right of us. So these jokers on the right, now all of a sudden Lindsey Graham says, oh, language doesn't matter. I thought we just had giant congressional hearings because of a potential chant on college campuses. That's when everybody was pretending that language is the most important thing in the world. Now the Donald Trump, and by the way, they were saying that that could be interpreted as genocide. Well, Trump is using Hitler quotes. So are we doing congressional hearings about that? No, now all of a sudden language doesn't matter. Even if it's a call for genocide, even if it's a Hitler quote. Now all of a sudden language doesn't matter. So how can you elect a Republican? Donald Trump says these Africans, these Asians, these Latinos poison our blood. They're inferior and we need to do something about them. So of course you can't vote for Donald Trump. He's a monster. And I don't know what other fascist things he's planning to do. I know he tried a coup here in America. Now that you go to the Democrats. Guys, no matter what you think should be done about immigration, we'll do it. Instead, Biden has done nothing, nothing. So now we have record undocumented immigrants, that's true, okay? Then the Republicans started sending them to the blue cities like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, etc. And then everybody's flipping out, don't send them here. No, that's not the right answer. No, they're here in America already. It doesn't matter if they're in a blue city or a red state. The question is, what should we do with them? And I have an idea. My idea is do a Marshall Plan for Latin America. Oh, no way, that worked before. Yeah, I know that worked before. I'm not doing it just out of morality. I'm doing it out of being practical. And it's much more efficient use of our money. But what's Biden's answer? Literally nothing. He's not getting tougher, he's not getting softer, he's not doing Marshall Plan, he's not doing this, he's doing nothing.
Let me jump in on that a little, and by the way, you're mostly correct, but I wanna make sure we're as accurate as we can be. He did do something that got very little attention. This was about 2 months ago. He realized, okay, there's a giant influx of Venezuelans coming here seeking asylum. So he finally lifted some of the economic sanctions against Venezuela. Now, part of that was to increase the oil supply internationally because Venezuela, of course, is an oil producing country, and he wanted to lower the prices at the gas pumps. That's
ding, ding, ding,
that's
ding, ding,
I think
ding.
the main reason. But lifting those economic sanctions on Venezuela hopefully will improve economic conditions on the ground in Venezuela, thus leading to a situation in which people wouldn't want to leave the country to come here to the United States. So to your point, you're absolutely right. More of that should happen. But I don't think it will.
No, of course not. Because Biden is so scared like that if he actually did something proactive and try to help those countries where the majority of the immigrants are coming from, that the right wing would say, oh, you're too soft. Well, I don't give a damn what the right wing calls me or you or Biden or anyone else. I want to actually fix the problem. But Joe Biden doesn't view it that way. And to be fair to him, most politicians are like this. They're like, yeah, but how about me? The most important person is me. And I don't want to be called anything by the Republicans. I'm so scared of them. Then why are you running against them? For God's sake, retire, brother, retire. So, okay, so you did one halfway decent thing of removing the sanctions, and thank you, Anna, for pointing that out. That's something. And by the way, he mainly followed Trump's policies for most of the time.
He did.
That he was in office, and he's the kids in cages, and Trump's a monster and terrible. And for about 3/4 of his term, he followed identical policies to Trump, or near identical policies to Trump. So he's just a big fat zero sitting there. because he doesn't care to do anything. He doesn't care to solve anything. He's only obsessed with himself and his legacy and his reputation. So he's like, how is this affecting my brother? All right,
it's affecting your reputation or your legacy in a negative way. If that's really the question that he's asking, right? So, look, final thing I'll say about this is, it's easy to point to Donald Trump's rhetoric and find it monstrous and to condemn it. But at the same time, remember, our current government, which is led by Democrats, which is led by Joe Biden, is supplying an endless supply of weaponry and bombs to the Israeli military, which has absolutely no problem slaughtering innocent civilians in the Gaza Strip. So on one hand, you have disgusting rhetoric. On the other hand, you have a government that has enabled the slaughter of tens of thousands of innocent civilians in the Gaza Strip. So it's really difficult for me to see this situation as black and white, good versus bad, good versus evil. When in reality, on both sides, we have individuals with blood on their hands, period.
Yeah, and for my idea of doing Marshall Plan for El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, etc., they say, oh, well, that'll cost a lot of money. It might cost like $14 billion. The $14 billion we're planning to send to Israel to kill more Palestinian children. Yeah, that's the easiest decision in the world. Unfortunately, in Washington, it's just as easy, but in the reverse direction. Both Republicans and Democrats are saying, send the money, who cares about Palestinian children? But if it comes to actually helping our immigration issue and helping those countries at the same time, no way. We would never be generous, we would never be magnanimous, and we would never help those poor people. Instead, we'll send them money for more war and more death and destruction.